right, well, kia ora koutou, ko Stephen toku ingoa no o Tatahi Ao. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this event, and we're going to be hearing from Bill Murphy about a little bit about what they're involved in at Enterprise Angels, and in particular, a really interesting impact fund. And we just had a podcast session, so I've had a full download, and it's all in my brain, but we'll do our best to convey as much as possible to all of you. And the purpose of the session is really to just hear from other parts of New Zealand what's going on, in particular your perspective from Enterprise Angels. All right. See, so it's a perfectly sized room now. Lock the doors. Yeah, so thank you very much, everybody, for coming. It's great to have you all here. I know many of you, and you're all, as well as what you've said, I know that you're also involved in multiple other things and other hats, so we could easily go for a long time. But Bill, this is really about you to share a bit about what you're doing and what you're involved in. So, okay, I'm just going to pass to you, and then you can give us an outline, and then people can maybe ask questions, and we can take it from there.
Great. Thanks very much, Stephen, for organizing this and for hosting us here this afternoon. What a great turnout. I've known that CHRISTCHURCH is alive and well when it comes to social enterprise and impact investing, but this is a real sign of that. So thanks so much for all of you for coming today, and I hope I can share with you some things that will be useful in the work that you're doing. Yeah, so maybe just very quickly a bit of background, just so you know who I am or where I'm coming from. 12, 13 years ago, I looked at New Zealand and couldn't understand why we didn't have an ecosystem for early stage businesses in New Zealand. In those days, if you wanted to get capital to start your startup, if you were brave enough, you picked up the phone and called the local rich guy. That's how sophisticated we were, you know. And I'm originally from the States. I've lived in New Zealand 30 years, but I'm originally from the States, and I knew how developed angel investing was there, and I just couldn't understand why we didn't have it here, and it just really frustrated me. So I was one of the people that helped to get that going. Enterprise Angels now, 6 staff. We've invested in 80 companies, $40 million, 210 members. So it's been a major player in the early stage commercial startup scene in New Zealand. And so I know a number of you are probably working with young social enterprise businesses, and I can talk about how I think angel investors in particular will support and invest in those types of enterprises. A couple of years ago, I got another frustration point. I could feel like I had been working with the angel investors for 10 years and was starting to look at what else I might want to do. Just like every single one of you here in this room, what drives me is making a difference. That's what really makes me get out of bed in the morning, what really makes me do the things that I do. And so I started thinking, well, what else might I do, you know, that would really have meaning to me or would really make a difference in the world? Came across impact investing, again, because I get back to the States pretty regularly, was, why the hell aren't we doing impact investing in New Zealand? We're asleep at the wheel. It's not happening here. It's been going for 2 decades in the States. It's going Europe. So, couldn't help myself. Started to really investigate impact investing, social enterprise, all those things. And I got very excited about the potential to take the commercial business and commercial investment sector and bring it in to support impact investing, which I define as, there's all kinds of different definitions of impact investing, but I define impact investing as organizations, projects, companies whose primary focus is social or environmental change. The dollars enable that. They stabilize it, and they enable the change to be scaled. Just like we do in the commercial sector, you establish businesses in order to be able to scale for profit, for world domination, for customers, etc. We can use those same disciplines in certain opportunities to be able to stabilize them, so they're not constantly relying upon grant funding or from government or regional trusts, whatever. Stabilize them and scale them, and also help them to be able to be duplicated. and scaled that way. So that's kind of a main thing that we're looking to accomplish through Purpose Capital. So when I also felt that the philanthropic sector in New Zealand needed to lead into the impact work. It's no good me going to all my commercial mates and saying, come on, let's make a difference in the world. And, they're all busy doing what they're doing. I felt that the philanthropic sector needed to make the first move. As Steve and I talked about in the podcast, in New Zealand, that means the regional trusts, and that means Rada Foundation here. They have millions, and millions of dollars. They do fantastic work providing grants to not-for-profits in their regions. That's what they've done forever. But what about the 99% of their wealth, which is totally unavailable to the community, which is given to investment advisors to invest overseas, and the income that comes off that, they keep the lights on of their trust, and they provide grant funding to not-for-profits. Vitally important work. But what about the rest of the money? Why isn't that going to work for the community? Impact investing enables them to take initially, let's hope it's going to end up being a lot more than that in time, enables them to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% of that 99% of their wealth and invest that into their community alongside the grant funding work that they do. So that's the promise in New Zealand. That's one of the promises of impact investing, is engaging these regional trusts and getting them to back impact investing. Good news is Purpose Capital has commitments of $5 million from Well Energy Trust in the Waikato, TECT in Tauranga, Bay Trust in Tauranga, and subject to due diligence an approval of $5 million from Eastland Community Trust in Gisborne. So right across the middle of New Zealand, we've got the trusts engaged. Their money's going to be invested in the fund, a $20 to $30 million fund. It won't solely be focused on investing in those regions. One of the things that myself as a commercial person has to say sometimes to the philanthropic sector is that it would be very unwise, given the level of deal flow in New Zealand and impact investing at the moment, it would be very unwise to just focus on your own region for impact investing. And I'll say that when I meet with Leighton. Unfortunately, with my flight being delayed this morning, we didn't get a chance to meet, but we know each other well. We've had a couple of conversations, and I'll see him in a month's time when I'm back down. Encouraging the trust to not just invest in their own region. Why? There's an obvious reason why. Where do they currently invest all their funds? All over the world. So you're telling me, Rada Foundation, you're telling me we can't invest in Dunedin. How does that make any sense? So we're breaking that open as well, which is really good news for everybody. Purpose Capital, $20 to $30 million fund. The bad news for early stage social enterprise businesses is Purpose Capital won't be able to invest in your business. The reason is, for me to get these trusts on board, the risks of investing in an early stage company are very, very high. And that's too high if I expected to get the trusts engaged meaningfully at a $5 million level. So Purpose Capital will be investing in asset-backed investments like dairy farms conversions, like horticulture, like social housing, potentially co-housing, cooperative housing, things where we can go in, we can get security, and we can invest, lowering our risk. So that's what we can accomplish with Purpose Capital Fund 1. For those of you with early stage social enterprises, as I said before, Enterprise Angels, the 210 members that we have, we've surveyed the members. We've been preparing them for a year to support early stage social enterprise. And they are, in many instances, saying, bring it on. I want to do something more meaningful with my money too. We're looking for those opportunities. So I think the Angels will be a good source of funding into that sector. So that's kind of a rundown of me and what I'm doing, and I'm really happy to, maybe rather than keep on blabbing, I'm really happy to take any questions to make sure that what we did here today is relevant to what you're trying to accomplish.
Can I ask a question? Just we'll open it up in a second, but just can you, because you've been to some of these big international events for impact investing, in particular one in San Francisco. Can you describe the international context of what's happening in this space?
Sure. So if you get the opportunity, and I know it's not cheap, flying to the States, SOCAP is sort of the granddaddy of all impact events. That takes place in San Francisco, September, October each year. 3,500, I think the last one I was at had 3,700 people at it, and everybody in the sector is there or is represented. Gareth we actually met, good things happen. We actually met at the last SOCAP, was it? Or the one before that? Yeah. So the day is split up. There is breakout groups during the day, and there's 20 groups every hour on every subject you can imagine. So you can go through, and it's 4 days long. You can go through and you can really follow the things that you're most interested in and wanting to learn about. The United States is very developed in impact investing, and you can always add a zero or two behind what we do. They just have vastly greater funds. A lot of the focus is on developing countries at SOCAP, and a lot of the focus in the United States by impact investors is rightfully on developing countries. What else there? Look, you can explore everything at an event like that. So that's a great one. There are other events that take place in the States and also in Europe, but it's a great way to get a grounding in the learnings from others and and for you to be able to reflect on how we might be able to do that work here in New Zealand. It's been really useful for me that way.
That's cool. So I know there's going to be questions, so why don't we open it up? And I know if you ask the question, it's likely someone else in the room is also thinking of that. So any questions? Yep.
Hi, my name is Tatiana. I hadn't introduced myself before. I'm here with Ecovilla Asia. Within developing countries, is there a main sector field that impact investors are looking at, or is it really spread out, as in the focus of the projects?
It's pretty spread out. Some, particularly if they come from the capital market sector and maybe the early stage sector, they look at technology developments that can really aid in the third world. So you see all kinds of stuff around mobile phone, because everybody, but so many people in developing countries, they may not have anything, but they have a mobile phone. So banking and financial systems through mobile phones and that kind of technology. Then there's the environmental ones with repurposed stoves that cut down on the fumes that are inside huts and homes like that. There's all kinds of solar panel work that gets done, alternative energies. So a whole range of things. It is one of the things that I felt a year and a half ago when I was thinking about impact. I was thinking, okay, great. Really want to see how we can get this impact going in New Zealand, but we have small p problems in New Zealand. Developing countries have big P problems. I wonder if there's a way in which we could also do a developing country impact investing. And so we're invested in a social enterprise in Tonga. And so that was kind of my entree into it. Pacific Islands, natural for us as New Zealanders to think of the Pacific Islands. So we've done quite a lot of work in the Pacific Islands. I could talk more about that. And we continue to do that work there. There it's artisan type use of coconut oil and all kinds of things like soaps, and there's coffee, there's what else? There's mostly it's trying to use products from Samoa, for instance, where I was, and getting those marketed in the forms of food or health products and things like that. That's a lot of what we see in the Pacific Islands.
Bill, I'd be interested to hear a little bit more about your fund's interest in the dairy sector. What sort of areas within that they might be interested in supporting, and will they go as far as looking at alternatives, such as, I don't know, non-milk milk or whatever it might be.
Right. Maybe to put it most simply, what we're looking for is those highly talented, highly motivated farm owners that don't have the resources to make the environmental and efficiency gains that they know very, very well they should and want to be making on farm. And working with those farmers to provide them the tools and the systems to be able to make the changes in efficiency and the environmental changes, and then using those as models so that those can be emulated by others. So those could include organic dairying, they could include goat, sheep, they could include just simply much more efficient and environmentally aware conventional dairying. So all of those are a possibility.
Hi. A question around basically, where have you seen any successes for an organisation transitioning from that community sector poverty trap of grants and government funding and that cycle kind of struggle, and it transitioning into a more commercially disciplined setup? Have you seen any examples of that and involving angel and impact investment?
Yeah, I'm thinking of one, and I probably know some more, and I wish I knew more. We're just early in that process. I think one of the reasons for that is that a lot of social enterprises that are currently relying upon grant funding don't know yet the fact that there's honeypots being created in New Zealand, that there's investors and investment funds. And that's what happened in the angel space. As soon as investors and as soon as entrepreneurs started to realize, oh my God, I could potentially get funded. Yeah, I could to do this. I could get an investor, and they'd be there to help me and not just put money in. That can really help to shift things. I'm thinking of Kogo, which is an app you can have on your phone. Are you aware of Kogo? Come into CHRISTCHURCH. I only want to go to cafes that are organic or free range eggs or whatever you can choose, and it will show you the cafes, and then you go and you shop there. You use the app. They know that you've used Kogo. They get reinforced, et cetera, et cetera. Well, they were originally a not-for-profit, and they converted into a social enterprise. They've raised a fair bit of capital in New Zealand, and they're currently raising, and we'll have them at an event in Auckland and Tauranga in early September, pitching for further capital. So that's an example of one in the technology sector. I'd have to see if I can think of some more, but there's not as many as we want.
There's partly following on from your earlier comment about the ratas and trusts. What the 2017 census from Scotland showed that actually, though there was a very vibrant social enterprise impact organisations there, the directors or trust members of those organisations were very risk averse, and in fact there was virtually no applications for impact investment. What was your comment on Scotland example be? That's
what I heard in Australia as well. Australia is probably 4 or 5 years ahead of us, and when I asked them, how have you gone here with raising money from trusts and everything, and they would just say they have a really, really difficult time, really, and so that kind of made me feel like, oh gosh, I wonder how it's going to go in New Zealand. But I give a lot of credit to the trusts here.
I'm talking the other side as well, is actually the social enterprise trusts, if they're a charitable trust or whatever, are not, Scotland, they're not engaging with because of fear of going commercial, if you like, entering that world. And you've got a whole, normally boards of charities are not commercially savvy, and they'll walk away from anything like that very, very quickly.
So
there's education on both sides may be required.
I see what you're saying, I'm sure that's going to be the case sometimes for sure. To convert and take on risk by becoming a social enterprise and taking on capital. You have to have people around the table who are willing to take on risk and understand how to mitigate that and how to navigate that, and that's certainly not everybody that will be willing to do that. But investors, impact investors they will come onto the board, they will help in that journey. It's always about smart money, it's not just about dollars.
On that, how do you balance the sort of traditional investment need for large returns with the social impact side? Like if you have a business that would, say, have a 50% chance of giving you 50 times return, but had no social or environmental side, versus a business that might give you 10 times return, but 10% chance of that happening, and it was very socially minded. Like, where's the gray area typically?
Yeah, like we talk about individual investors, it's each of them themselves. When they get to the point where, you know, you've kind of inspired them about investing in this social enterprise, and it gets to the point where they've pulled out the wallet and they're actually gonna take the money out of the wallet, so to speak, and leave it on the table and take their hand away, that's the moment of truth. Because I'll have people say it's wonderful, all this, you know, and all the rest of it. And I'm aware of the investing they're doing, because they're investing through social enterprise commercially, and they're telling me they can't, you know, they don't, you know, whatever, and I'm seeing how much they're investing commercially. That tells me where their evolution is at. Their evolution is at, they're still out for personal gain, they're still attracted to that. They, even if I present them purpose capital, which is lower risk, but it's only a 6% return, many of them will turn off. I had one person say to me, and I'm sure I'll hear this some more, it was the first high net worth that I spoke to. He said to me, when I told him 6% return, he said, well, it is philanthropy, isn't it? I said, no. Philanthropy is no return on your money and no return of your money. This is impact investing, return of your money and 6% on it. And that's not too bad, actually, you know, if you look at the stock markets around the world. So individuals, they're gonna have to, you know, they're gonna have to make the decision. We need pioneers and brave people to step into this space so that others can follow. Weighing up investment return and impact. There are many things that are completely inappropriate to try to turn into impact investment opportunities. It's inappropriate. You can't get a return, and it would contort the organization in such a way that it would severely impact on what they're trying to do. We're looking for those things that it can be additive and not a distraction or a problem.
Just following on from that, how are you seeing investor appetite for the, you know, they'll get their dividend check every quarter or every year. What about quantification of the social, the economic, environmental dividends that they're also unlocking? What's today? Are they hands off? Do they just go give us an annual report each year with some words, or do they want to see actual metrics on a quarterly basis? How engaged are they on that front?
Yeah, people are on a spectrum. I often say this about angel investors. Some people will be investing in the impact space because they really want the financial return, and they believe in the business disciplines, and it feels good to be supporting something that's going to do something good. Then you'll have people all the way up the other end of the spectrum who will quite honestly in their own minds have given the money away. They'll say, they're not going to say that to me, but they will essentially say to their wife, or their wife, more often it's the wife making these decisions now. The wife will say to the husband, well, look, even if we lost all this money, the return on impact investing is guaranteed. The impact is guaranteed. From day one, the financial return is not guaranteed. So some people will go in and they will feel the impact is guaranteed. If I don't even get my money back, I would still be relatively happy about this investment. That's not what we should be doing in the impact space. We have to be giving financial return as well as, so it's a real spectrum, and it really depends on where a person's at in their journey. Not always their wealth, but where they're at in their journey.
Yeah, and another question, also just putting my hand up to be brave and pioneering. But my question is being somebody who speaks the language of compost and plants and soil, and connecting with people. Where do I know I need to learn the language of finance. So often my generation looks to YouTube, but I don't necessarily trust the integrity of that, and so I'm just wondering if you can point to some good sources of where people can educate themselves and start to develop the language.
Yeah, a great way to do that would be to go to a Canterbury Angels meeting.
Yep.
So that's Enterprise Angels counterpart here in Christchurch, and I would certainly hope that they would be happy to have any guests come to the meetings. We certainly are. And if you're a person that learns by doing and observing rather than sitting down and reading and stuff, you can go along to the meeting. You can see 2, 3, 4 companies pitch for investment funds. You're in the room full of investors, drinks and nibbles afterwards. You can learn a huge amount just through that. Make some connections, say, I'd love to have coffee with you. You know a lot about this stuff. I just need somebody to walk me through what is a term sheet, what are preferential terms and all that kind of stuff. That's a great way to learn.
Just following on from Bailey's question, we talked in the podcast about some of the changes that you've seen in terms of entrepreneurs coming for, wanting money. And initially you were saying they weren't very well prepared, but that's changed. Can you just talk us through what those changes have been for everybody to hear? Because I thought that was quite helpful.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so when I started helping to create this ecosystem for early stage commercial investing, almost all my work was focused on the entrepreneurs because they didn't know how to approach the investors at all. So where you're at now, the commercial entrepreneurs were at 10 years ago in New Zealand. And so people like myself, incubators, accelerators, these guys are involved in one with ECANS, as they said, and just the burning desire of entrepreneurs to learn so that they could raise capital drove their ability to learn and come up to speed. And I can remember being in Boston probably 10 years ago and sitting down with a couple of, they were probably 19 years old, sitting down with a couple of really young guys, and I couldn't believe the depth of their understanding about investing. They knew what investors were looking for, they knew all the terms, they knew all the jargon, and I can remember thinking to myself, gosh, we've got a long way to go with our New Zealand entrepreneurs. But I'll tell you what, for the past 6 years, I haven't had to do any of that prep work. The entrepreneurs all come now fully prepped, they know what the expectations are, they're talking to each other, they're talking to whatever, however they learn. So the same thing will happen in this sector, and you just dive in the deep end. And just dive, and don't be afraid to ask people. Yeah.
Just from what you said, when you're offering a return to an investor of 6%, it sort of sounds like it's like a bond. So I suppose you're not looking for a social enterprise that's going to revolutionise the whatever industry they're in and going to lose money for 6 years and have a big difference. You're looking for something that's a measurable, I suppose, outcome backed by something. So
Yeah.
the investors aren't losing money. Is that what you are?
Yeah, that's what purpose capital is. Yeah. Yeah. I would love for it to be more than that, because my background is taking big risks on early things. But there will be people who will do that. As I mentioned, the angels, they're the ones who are best placed to take on that risk. They have the wealth, they have the experience, and they have the risk tolerance.
So what I'm thinking from that is, I suppose I come to a lot of these purpose, these impact investment things, is I actually don't think there is impact investment for early stage impact people, I suppose, who are trying to do outrageous things, I suppose, I know Bailey and others. And really it's actually you have to make it financially viable so you could go to a true angel investor to do it. Do you think I'm being fair in that?
If you have to make it financially viable or have the promise of that, then you have to be able to tell that story to investors. There is, however, particularly in the social enterprise sector, you have an advantage over the commercial sector, believe it or not. There is an advantage, besides the fact that you feel great about the work you're doing. The advantage is blended finance. So in the impact sector, there's the capability of drawing in grant funding to support you at a particular stage of your growth, of drawing in low interest loans by people like RADA or others, so that you can start to build and de-risk your initiative to a point where you would then be able to go to investors and say, look how much we've done, and look where we're going, and we're now ready for you as investors to come on board. So it is possible to do that. One of the strategic reasons for getting these trusts on board, from my point of view with Purpose Capital, is if an impact investment opportunity is in their region, let's say you're here in Christchurch, and let's just say my conversation with Leighton goes fabulously well, and RADA Foundation was able to be part of what we're doing, then if the investment opportunity is here in Christchurch, RADA Foundation is one of, say, 6 trusts that are investors in the fund, then we would be coming to Leighton. Leighton would already know about the opportunity, but we'd be coming to RADA Foundation, and we'd be saying, we really like this opportunity. We really think it's got real potential to make a real difference in this region, but they're going to need some grant funding. Here's what we've identified they need to do. They're going to need grant funding. And at that point, they're going to need a low interest loan, for premises for it. And so you can take that kind of approach to advance what you're doing. In the commercial sector, that's not available for them. So it's an advantage that you have.
The one concern I think we can have with that is that there's not enough money to solve the social issues of New Zealand. So if early startups are going that direction, that's denying grants to philanthropic organisations who are already, and so if RADA start moving their funds, their grant-making funds, towards those ventures, that's actually stopping other people who can't ever play that game. And I think that's a concern, whereas we think, talking about EVPA in Europe, they seem to have an ability, proof of the pudding, to actually begin to do that blending as a group, rather than have the enterprise do that, or the organisation do it themselves.
Yeah.
What's your view on that?
Yeah, it would be great if Purpose Capital was set up so that it could provide grant funding, and it didn't have to draw on the existing limited pool of grant funding. I agree with you. I don't have a solution for that. I will say that when I see trusts making a commitment to impact investing and holding aside grant funding to underwrite the risk they're taking in impact investing, I really don't like that. I just think, for God's sakes, so none of the trusts that we're involved in are doing that, to my knowledge. Yeah, but I hear what you're saying about the other. There's no easy answer to that. That's something the trusts have to wrestle with. Yeah.
How are you engaging investors? Like, what do you do to get investors on board?
Yeah, good question. Right. We raise capital. I've raised capital now for 12 years. We have 3 funds of our own, Enterprise Angels does, and we have to actually raise capital for that. And every 2 months, we have 3 or 4 new companies that we're raising capital for. So, yeah, and that's one of the least fun things about it all. And it's the same with impact investing. So, with the philanthropic sector, it's about providing them an investment opportunity where the risks are low enough that they'll engage, and really painting a picture for them about the difference that you make, and also that promise of bringing the commercial community in as well, so that, because the way the philanthropic sector looks at the world, and understandably, they feel that they're battling a way to solve all these problems on their own, sometimes with government. And the promise of bringing commercial money, high net worth money in to solve these problems alongside them is something they're very keen on. So with the philanthropic sector, that's the additionality of money. With high net worth and corporates, we are just starting on that journey. And with high net worths, I often just tell them my story myself. It's kind of a, come on, you buggers. Let's do this,
So you just shoulder tap them. Be like, hey.
Right, so I have databases of connections and contacts, and I work through people who are close to 5 or 6 or 10 people. I get them to make introductions for me to those people. I get them to potentially try to sell the fund to them, or just set up a coffee or whatever. So it's working through people to get to other people that I don't know directly, where I don't know them directly. With corporates, the two, the chair and the deputy chair of Purpose Capital are commercial totra trees in the Waikato and the Bay of Plenty. John Mason is the former chief executive of the Port of Tauranga, former chairman of New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, so a big totra tree. Steve Tucker is the managing director of the Gallagher Group, iconic company in the Waikato. Those guys are going to open up the corporate doors for them and me to go in and start talking to the corporates and say, enough with the greenwashing, take some corporate money and actually invest that in impact to do good. And we have to see what the response there is going to be.
What do you learn from other impact investors?
I've learned a lot, but I've also learned that it has to be fit for purpose in a New Zealand context. What we're doing will be uniquely Kiwi, both in terms of the things that we focus on and in terms of where the money comes from. So if I was at SOCAP and I was sitting down talking to a room full of impact investors like this, and I talked about a primary focus of our fund is going to be on the dairy and the horticulture sector, half the room would look at me like I was mad. They would, why are you investing in those things? They're investing in all kinds of different types of things. So it's you could take things from overseas, but you have to think about how it works here in New Zealand.
Could you go into greater detail around the asset-backed type of opportunities, particularly the ones around co-housing and social housing?
Yeah. So ideally, we would come in and we would, for a period of time, be lending funds into the development at the development stage alongside the bank, and so we would have security over the development. Purpose Capital is a 10-year fund. That's a really traditional private equity type of fund. It's supposed to be invested in things and get back out of things within that 10-year period, which is not ideal. But so we'd be looking for people to be able to build up enough equity in their homes that they could then take us out of the co-op at year 6, 7, 8, 9, something like that. So we would probably be debt funders in there, and then be able to be taken out through a bank refinance or other finance in that period of time.
What sort of scale is your sweet spot for investment?
Let's say we're fortunate enough to get a $30 billion fund, we would be looking at making probably 8 to 10 investments, so $3 million per investment, which is not a lot of money especially when we talk about housing. So we have to be very strategic in the way we invest. We have to invest to help to establish new models and shift the dial. And we also have to have the ability to bring co-investment partners along with us, because most of the projects will be bigger than our $3 million can achieve.
And we were talking before as well, we were talking in the podcast about intergenerational thinking, thinking beyond the 10-year horizon and things. And you were mentioning a Maori initiative, a Maori example in the North Island.
Yes.
Do you want to just describe that?
Sure. So maybe the first thing for the younger people in the room, one of the other things I say to my high net worth friends who are typically my age is, look, you've had the opportunity to invest and run business for profit only your whole life. The world can no longer sustain that approach. The young people now cannot develop businesses solely on the basis of financial return. It has to be on the basis of environmental reparation and improvement, and we've got all kinds of social issues that are only going to increase as the environmental crisis increases. So come on, you know. So that's one answer to the generational thing.
Mhm.
Okay. The other was, Steve mentioned Maori. We're looking at, we will certainly be looking at other opportunities, but when we think about dairy, we think environment. When we think about horticulture, we think social change, and we think Maori. Because particularly in the Bay of Plenty and the Eastern Bay of Plenty and the Gisborne region, we have Maori communities there with multi-generational issues and deprivation. There are examples of using kiwi fruit to start to shift land use in those areas where currently the land is unused or is in maize, and so you can increase the money that would flow off that land dramatically through innovative horticulture projects. And what we'd be looking to do in those investment opportunities is currently financiers will go in and partner with Maori on Maori-owned land, and they will pay for the rolling out of gold kiwi fruit infrastructure on that land. They'll then bring in one of the kiwi fruit management companies. They'll manage that kiwi fruit orchard on Maori land for, say, a period of 11 or 12 years. And at the end of that period, they will have gotten a return such that they will have been repaid all their capital plus a return on it. And they walk away from that project. And Maori forevermore owned the gold kiwi fruit infrastructure. Those of you a bit more sophisticated in the room than I was a couple of years ago will realize, that's probably marginal in terms of impact. A couple of years ago, I thought, hey, that's a win-win for everybody. That looks pretty cool. Maori owned that going forward. That's great. The role that we would play in an investment opportunity like that is we would partner deeply with Maori to hear from Maori, how can we use a project like this to provide sticky, systemic change in that community that will be long-lasting, not just a Band-Aid. You know, there's been so much of that that's happened. And we would say to the financiers, rather than pulling out of this project at year 11, when you project to get your return, let's stay in there for another year 12. And let's take that year's worth of earnings, and let's make this difference that Maori themselves are telling us will make a difference. So we're the ones who will drive and have our eye on the impact, even though in many ways, to many of you probably, we look sort of like conventional financiers. That's really what we're trying to do.
Two questions. What's your focus on circular economy and regenerative models within those sorts of projects, and how do you measure impact?
Right, so circular economy, Jennifer McIver, Wishbone?
Ellen MacArthur.
I'm sorry?
Ellen MacArthur Foundation?
No.
No?
McIver, Jennifer McIver out of Wellington, Wishbone, which is a wooden toy company, if any of you know it. So they're real leaders in circular economy in New Zealand. She's on our investment committee, so I'll be leaning on her and I wish she was here so she could provide a better answer than I'll be able to. Yes, certainly that'll be, wherever we possibly can, that'll be in part of what we take into account with impact investing. Just like we'll have all the financial models in place, we'll have the impact and measurement models in place. It's been a while since I talked about this. I must be talking to too many commercial investors. They're not asking me this question. We will be utilizing, I can't remember the organization or the project now. We'll be utilizing that as the backbone of our measurement systems for impact. Kristen Joyner is my colleague working with me in Purpose Capital. Kristen comes 100% from the social and environmental change sector. She doesn't have a financial bone in her body. So she's the one who will be doing the due diligence on the impact side of the impact investment opportunities, and will be looking after the impact measurement along with the board and investment committee, but she'll be leading that work.
Cool. Any last questions from anyone who hasn't asked one, maybe? And then we'll go to bed.
It's kind of a challenge in a way, and coming from the kindest place possible, that I work with young people every day, and they're really disenfranchised and angry about the outlook in the world, and they're desperate for opportunities, and they engage really meaningfully in the kind of space that we can provide for them. And often they empower me to come and to carry their voice into rooms like this and meetings with different ministers. And, the most powerful challenge that one of our young people who spent his whole life in the care and protection services is currently homeless, living nearby. He said, I said, I'm potentially going to meet the Prime Minister in 2 days' time. Would you like me to say something to him? And after about 10 minutes of colourful language, he said, come and spend a day in my shoes and see what it's like before you make another decision around mental health funding. And so I'd really, with financial markets clearly unable to value social and ecological, cultural values, that while there's consumer trends and there's public movements and activations happening, the markets aren't moving. I think I'd really love to see some of the investors in this space come and spend a day in our shoes, come and see what it's like, because we can't get through the door otherwise with the lack of understanding or just we don't register. So a challenge and an invite and a welcome, a call to welcome you to come and see our project, any other project, and just get some soil under their fingernails and feel what it's like.
Yep, I hear you.
Thank you for hearing me.
And that, just reiterate with World Vision, when we took major donors overseas as a organisation, it transformed their giving and their attitude. Because until they were there and sitting in someone's house and realised that burning place in the corner actually was the kitchen.
Yeah.
They didn't have soft closing drawers or 5 burner or whatever. And I think that's really speaks what Barry's saying is that, and maybe it's more attractive to fly to Rwanda or Tanzania or whatever. Downtown Christchurch may not have the same attraction, that's very, but we can make it that way, can't we?
We could roll out the red carpet or just give you a carry on. Seriously.
Great. Preston, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just kind of curious what, so I had the privilege of dropping into SOCAP in 2015. I was 23 years old and got pretty wide-eyed going in, and actually was part of the steering the rudder for me to end up in Christchurch. So yeah, they do good stuff. But what have you noticed as far as the demographic goes of people coming to Angels or for impact investing? And are there trends as far as like generational interests and stuff as well? Are more young people interested in the tech space? Because it seems like the problems that we're trying to solve are social and environmental. That's what's on us, but that's across the board. So what trends have you noticed in places like the US versus maybe trends here?
I don't know if I'm experienced enough yet, and we are here in New Zealand experienced enough to notice trends. One of the major ones I can see is that in the angel world, that is so male dominated. The entrepreneurs, the tech entrepreneurs are male, the investors are male, enterprise angels, while half our board is female, our membership is 15% female probably. It's just that space. It has all the testosterone and everything,
Even within this room right now.
Well, yeah, interestingly. But when it comes to impact investing, women are and I've even had, I had one of my highest net worth angels contact me recently because I was chasing him, and he came back to me and he said, my mother's just fallen ill, so I've had to hold off having a conversation with her, but I was going to invite her to invest. And then he made a comment about his sister as well. And that would never, ever have happened in the angel space. So women are the ones who are really responding to this. And then, of course, I emailed him back and I said, Ian, you do know men are allowed to invest in this fund as well, right? No response. So women are going to, we're really looking to find ways to make this open and inviting and welcome for women to be able to come in and go, and then go home and speak to their partner and say, we're doing this. So.
All right, well, thank you very much, Bill, for coming. And for those who came in late, there was snowing in Dunedin, right? So it was like how am I going to contact people to tell them that he's not able to make it? But fortunately, he made it. And I think the point of today was really just to have a bit of information, a bit of discussion, hear a different perspective from someone who's been doing this for a while, and in particular with this new fund. And I know it probably can't help all of us out with the early stage things, but I think it's important to know where it's at in New Zealand in terms of where things are at. And I'm just reminded, just to close off the thinking, in May there's a conference called Philanthropy New Zealand Conference. So I got to go to that, and there was 500 people in the room. Like, this is a big deal. And there was a session on impact investing, and it was really interesting to feel, the vibe of the room. There would have been probably 70 or 80 people in the room there talking about it, and these are from the big, as well as the community trusts. These were the Todd Foundation, Tyndall Foundation, like the family started ones, as well as smaller groups, and so there was real interest, and particularly people were talking about, it's not just about grants, it's not just about giving, and that picture of teaching someone to fish rather than giving them the fish. And traditionally for philanthropy, it's been, well, you need more money, here you go. You need more money, here you go. So it's that mindset shift. And what really strikes me in a room like this is that each of us, I think, are aware of the paradigm shifts that are happening in thinking. And in my view, impact investing is one example, one outworking of it. And then if you look at social enterprise, that's another outworking of it. And you look at consumer-driven choice, that's another outworking of it. And it's all kind of collectively coming together, and there are these synergies across our culture and what's happening. So my encouragement to each of you, because I know you care about this space, is what's our role within this? How can we be pushing boundaries in some way so that when you come down again, there are viable businesses ready to be invested in? Because ultimately that's what you want, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And that would have huge impact. So the other thing I just wanted to mention briefly, since you're here as a captive audience, is if you haven't read it yet, this is a report that came out from Akina Foundation, and I was able to help out with it. There were 5 of us who wrote it over 9 months. So if you haven't had a look at it, please have a look. It's called Structuring for Impact, Evolving Legal Structures for Business in New Zealand. And we haven't discussed that, but it's actually, we think it's a thought leadership piece, challenging the government about where we're at in terms of legal structures and what would work or not work in the future. And the other thing is, I've actually 3 of you in this room I've interviewed for Seeds podcast, and that's now up to 117 episodes, and it's only growing through people like you who kind of get this stuff. Because every Tuesday morning, there's a new story of somebody pushing boundaries or doing something different. And I really value each of you as potential unofficial ambassadors to help to spread the word about it. I've just gotten some little business cards. If you're interested in helping me, you may know places that it could go in a cafe or something like that. And also, I've been recording this session because I had a number of people who were going to be here, and I don't know how we would have all fit in, but they couldn't make it for last minute reasons. So I said I'll try to record it and make it available. And I'll probably post it on LinkedIn and maybe tag some of you. So if you see it come up and you think other people would be interested, then the usual help to share it and get the word out, because I think this is a helpful conversation to be having. So why don't we go in the usual way and give a little round of applause for that. And I think I have most of your emails. If I haven't emailed with you, then give me your card, and then we can follow up with more information and maybe some links to some of the things that you've talked about.
Great,
so,
thanks.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you very much.